Whoa, sorry, I'm wasting everyone's time there. So I'll try and pick up the couple of minutes that we lost there. So hello, everyone. Hope you're all well. So before starting, I'd like to say thanks to Stuart and Fergus for pulling everything together for these workshops and events over the last 12 months or so. I'd also like to say a big thanks to you guys for taking the time out of your diaries to come in to join us today. So we have 15 to 20 minutes for this presentation, in which I'm going to give you an overview on, first of all, who I am, secondly, who or what is Leave No Trace, and how is Leave No Trace useful to us as an outdoor and adventure operator. I'll also provide some direction on where to go to learn more. So to begin with then, my name is Seb Shingler, and I'm actually employed by HI as the Development Manager for Tourism. So I work behind the scenes to bring together a number of tourism programs, including this Let's Grow Adventure tourism program. I moved to Loch Arbor and joined HI about 2 years ago. And prior to this, I was a destination manager for Asia with Outlook Expeditions, who were a large student overseas expedition provider who, prior to COVID-19 anyway, sent approximately 3,000 students abroad around the world each year. So I have a variety of outdoor NGB qualifications, an undergrad degree in outdoor ed and a postgrad in responsible tourism management. So outside of HI, I work alongside my now wife Heidi to deliver environmental education under the Leave No Trace framework. And Heidi, she is a lecturer and curriculum developer at the University of the Highlands and Islands and holds undergrad and postgrad degrees in outdoor ed, as well as a variety of outdoor tickets. And she's also worked as a qualified counsellor with an increasing number of children and teenagers across Loch Arbor. Unfortunately, Heidi's unable to join us this afternoon due to some ongoing family commitments. So you may have noticed the term master educator on the previous slide, and it is absolutely a very American term. And I really prefer the Irish equivalent, which is an advanced trainer. But we did go through the American qualification system, so that's the sort of language that we'll stick with. Well, essentially, a master educator of Leave No Trace represents the highest level of training and assessment within the framework and permits us to run both trainer courses and awareness workshops. So how do we do this? Well, we provide 2-day trainer courses as well as workshops across the UK through our website, naturetraining.co.uk. We utilise social media and promote through industry and governing body organisations such as the Mountain Training Association. We've written a variety of articles on the subject of Leave No Trace and spoken on a few different podcasts and at different events. And although the term Leave No Trace is widely used across the UK, we appear to be the only individuals offering the formal training and certification under the framework for outdoor instructors, tour guides, or outdoor leaders of any kind, teachers, forest school operators, Duke of Edinburgh providers, and so on. So before getting into the details of Leave No Trace organisation, I think it's worth quickly outlining how we became involved and arrived at the stage we're at now. So Heidi and I met at uni, and upon completing our undergrad degrees, moved out to Hong Kong in order to work for the Outward Bound School. And you can see by the image there that Hong Kong contains, a really good amount of wild or undeveloped land. Actually, about 80% of the total landmass is sort of primary jungle, mountainous, some fantastic beaches. Our bread and butter work was delivering sort of 18-day developmental experts for students by land or sea kayak. And we also delivered longer expeditions that included sailing from Hong Kong to the Philippines or Hong Kong to Taiwan. And we also ran a good number of shorter sort of products for corporate clients from across Asia. Now, of course, Hong Kong has the highest population density on the planet. So come the weekend when everyone escapes the city to the country parks, they just got absolutely trashed. And add to that the sheer volume of waste that would wash up at every high tide due to being kilometres away from some of the busiest ports and shipping lanes on the planet. Shenzhen Harbour in mainland China, for example, the amount of waste that was accumulating in these sort of beautiful areas was just incredible. So in order to help improve the environmental awareness of the Hong Kong public, the Outward Bound School brought in instructors from the Leave No Trace Head Centre in Colorado, USA, to provide training in Leave No Trace, which we could pass on to our participants. So we really felt that the language and structure of the Leave No Trace organisation was so relevant and usable, it became a central aspect of each of our expeditions. And this image here shows us running a half-day awareness workshop for some local teachers, with the aim that they would go back to their schools and share with their students. But, you can see the large number of bin bags in the middle there, just collected as, within a sort of half an hour, 45-minute litter pick as part of the workshop. So upon completing our contracts with the Outward Bound School, we travelled overland back to the UK through China, Mongolia, Russia, Europe. And every place we travelled through, the impact of humans on the environment was just so visible. And I don't mean, human infrastructure, roads, pylons, power cables. I mean, sort of really needless impacts. I'm sure we've all seen piles of rubbish at various base camps, plastic seemingly everywhere in the outdoors, micro trash, leftover food, you name it. There's nothing that breaks the feeling of isolation more than when you're in a place that's so remote, you feel like you're the only human in existence, only to find a plastic water bottle that's been shoved under a rock some time previous. And I think really the light bulb moment for me was when we were on about a 50-hour bus ride back to Ulaanbaatar after climbing on the Kazakhstan border. And a local family were changing their children's nappies, and nobody on the bus batted an eyelid when all of the soiled nappies were just thrown out the window at sort of 20-minute intervals all the way home. And it really confirmed for me, that these principles of leave no trace are kind of needed more now than ever. And that's irrespective of geography, destination, or audience. So we arrived back to the UK in 2016 and started work on planning and delivering our first Leave No Trace courses in Snowdonia National Park. To be honest, filling that first course was really tricky. We were having to advertise to a really skeptical bunch of outdoor instructors who felt that, just because they completed the mountain leader training and assessment, they sort of knew everything there was to know. And we also received a fair amount of flack from these ex-military types who sort of, quite a lot of them in the outdoor industry. And they seem to think that Leave No Trace was all about using sort of low detection skills to sort of avoid an enemy. Really, we overcame this by partnering with Mountain Training, the Association of Mountaineering Instructors, as well as the British Association of International Mountain Leaders, and having them endorse the course with 2 professional development points. So the article I showed earlier went a long way in demonstrating what Leave No Trace was, and perhaps most importantly what it was not. So the first course was a success, and things have really moved from strength to strength since then. We've provided training, 2-day trainer courses to about 250 individuals, which we think is not a bad number considering the lockdowns over the last couple of years. So we run the training courses through spring and autumn seasons each year, and we do receive some positive feedback from participants, and it's really great and reassuring because it confirms to us that we are providing a beneficial product. And now when we tend to post on social media, we generally receive comments from prior participants who really endorse the Leave No Trace ethos and how it's impacted their own sort of personal and professional practice. Okay, so I've spoken in some detail about who we are and how we got involved with the Leave No Trace organisation. So I'll spend some time to explain who they are and what they do and how it's of use to you guys. So the organisation originated in the USA, and it was really during the post-World War II years where, there was huge advances in equipment, and that permitted more people to travel further into the wilderness. So it was things like waterproof clothing, gas stoves, lightweight tents that had all been developed sort of as part of the war effort. And very quickly, it was noticed that considerably more people were visiting areas that had previously been inaccessible, and they were having a negative impact on those environments. So the 4 main conservation agencies, Forestry Service, Bureau of Land Management, National Park Service, and the Fish and Wildlife Service, they came together and created this memorandum of understanding to promote, protect, and educate about the environment. And this resulted in a Leave No Trace pamphlet that was available through different gear shops and national park offices, wardens, or park rangers. It wasn't really until the early 1990s that the National Outdoor Leadership School, or NOLS, came on board, and together these organisations identified the need for a Leave No Trace entity that could devote resources to research. development and the delivery of outreach programs to people across the US. So in 1994, the first Leave No Trace Centre for Outdoor Ethics was established, and the goal of building greatly needed environmental programs that teach awareness and respect for natural areas in the United States. So it's since grown since 1994 to really become quite large across the USA and internationally. Within the USA, they conduct a variety of research into human impacts in outdoor spaces. They pull down a large amount of funding to deliver conservation projects. They work with gear manufacturers and tour operators to minimize the larger scale impacts. And they have multiple outreach initiatives. You know, they run a program called Leave No Trace for Every Child, in which it's envisioned every child growing up in the States will receive some basic information on what it means to leave no trace. They also run an initiative called Leave No Trace in Every Park, in which clear information is provided to visitors to every national park or country park through signage and park rangers. They run some really cool hotspot programs where people can submit their own sort of hotspots and organize cleanups and fund improvements to visitor infrastructure. So in short, you know, it's quite serious over there. They estimate they reach around 500,000 children per year through their outreach programs. So what about outside of the US? Well, it is absolutely an international organization that drives the movement within the USA, as well as education programs globally. So the countries in this slide all have a Leave No Trace, Leave No Trace representatives that conduct a variety of research and training. And those shown in green, Australia, Canada, New Zealand, and Ireland, have actually gone a step further and established physical Leave No Trace centres in order to conduct long-term outreach programs. And those countries really utilise the 7 principles of Leave No Trace as their sort of central strategy for outdoor recreation, much like our own sort of countryside code or the outdoor access code. So we've covered who Leave No Trace are and where they come from, where they currently operate. I think we should look at what sort of problems Leave No Trace can address and how they go about doing that. So I've included their value and mission statement here. I won't read them out, but I'd like to draw your attention to 2 words that I think are quite key. So Leave No Trace is all about ensuring wild areas are managed sustainably and that the people who visit the areas act responsibly. And they really believe that this must be achieved through education rather than legislation. And I think as outdoor leaders and activity providers, this is something we can all relate to. You know, I'm sure we can all think about examples where legislation's been attempted and it generally has mixed results. So what are some of the problems which Leave No Trace address and how do they go about achieving this? Well, essentially, they aim to provide people with skills and knowledge to become stewards of natural areas. Some of the more common problems that they can address include trashed natural areas, common sight post-lockdown, polluted water, misinformation in the outdoors, wildlife that's at risk, damage to trails, destructive fires. You know, really interesting statistic, you know, the US spend approximately $3 billion per year to fight fires in parks and forests. And according to the National Park Service, 85% of these are caused by humans. So poorly utilized barbecues, improper disposal of cigarettes, etc. Leave No Trace also does a lot to connect youth to nature. You know, we sort of realize that kids are spending less time outside than ever before, and the organization works every day to really try to help develop our future champions for nature. And I think this is another similar a photo we can relate to post-lockdown. You know, they do a lot to try and manage the pressure around honeypots, in particular crowded parks that can cause a lot of disruption to wildlife and harm the natural landscapes and also create a lot of social conflicts. So Leave No Trace aims to address these issues by following some fairly basic principles. Some of you may already be familiar with the 7 different principles, and I'm sure that actually to most people here today, they'll seem actually like common sense. You know, but really these are the sort of basic building blocks in which to build from. So the idea is that if everyone who ventured into the outdoors put these concepts into practice, then everyone, including the environment and communities, would stand to benefit. So I'll fly through these quite quickly, just because there's a good amount of information on these available elsewhere. But essentially, plan ahead and prepare. So this covers aspects such as checking available parking, the routes appropriate, weather, equipment, suitable overnight locations, access to toilets, consideration of others. So this photo is actually Penny Pass in Snowdonia National Park, and all of those cars parked there were parked illegally, and each one of them received a £60 fine. So I think Highland Council probably were quite happy with that. But, you know, consideration of others, respect the people who live and work in the countryside, park appropriately, try not to damage walls, fences, crops, respect other visitors, protect the quality of their experience as well as your own. Respecting farm animals and wildlife is another one of the principles. This idea about keeping wildlife wild and observing from a distance. You know, don't be tempted to try and feed wild animals or take selfies. Responsible dog ownership, you know, an awareness of really sensitive time. So lambing season, breeding, or, you know, ground birds nesting. Travel and camp on durable surfaces. So durable surfaces include things like, you know, appropriate campsites, rock, gravel, dry grasses, sand, snow. You know, in popular areas, it's around really concentrating use on existing tracks. And in more remote areas, it's about dispersing use to prevent the creation of new tracks. And of course, avoiding places where impacts are just beginning to show. Leave what you find. So the idea of this principle is that you will preserve the past, you examine without damaging archaeological structures or heritage artifacts. That could be, you know, in industrial mine workings, monuments, burial sites, but also conserve the present. So leaving rocks, flowers, plants untouched, animals and all natural habitats as you find them, really. This is a big one. Disposal of waste properly, you know, can be essentially summarized with, if you bring it in, take it out. So taking home all litter and leftover food, including tea bags, fruit peels, other biodegradable foods. Proper disposal of human waste. So this includes obvious toileting issues, but also less obvious concerns like sanitary products, toothpaste, and so on. And finally, minimizing the effects of fire. So this is Glen Etive here, and you know, I'm sure we're all aware of the damage that happens there on a weekly basis. You know, fires cause long-lasting impacts and can be devastating to forests, natural habitats, farmland. So when camping, just use a lightweight stove. Where fires are permitted, use established fire rings, barbecues, keep fires small, avoid burning plastics, burn all fires to ash. Fairly straightforward sort of concepts on the face of it. So how do we go about teaching this or actually using this to add value to our own experiences or products? Well, whilst the principles look to offer sound skills and guidance, there's a lot of fun and educational value in accepting the grey areas and letting individuals see the spectrum of approaches that might be taken in a particular situation. And this really helps individuals establish their own outdoor ethic and connect with their natural environments. So for example, if we're discussing the principle, leave what you find, we might encourage discussion on the valid use of cairns, mountain cairns. You know, these have been used as burial sites for decades or safe navigation off mountain summits, for example. But we might also explore the typical response to seeing a cairn as an outdoor consumer. Generally involves adding another stone once you reach the top of that summit, or building your own cairn as a mark of personal achievement. So we might actually, with our clients, go ahead and build multiple cairns. And whilst doing so, explore questions such as, what if everybody did this? You know, how are we impacting the environment right now? What are we disturbing? What will the next person who visits this area think? And by allowing individuals to explore and arrive at their own decision, we really intend to allow them to generate their own ethics and become their own steward. And of course, we would finish the sort of session or teachable moments, if you like, by putting everything back to the way that we found it and, you know, doing our best to leave no trace. So there is a common misconception across the UK that leave no trace is only concerned with literally leaving no trace, collecting litter, not cutting down trees or leaving fire scars. And to be honest, personally, I think that's fine. It's a good and it's a valid message. But in reality, leave no trace is more about the recognition and development of individuals' personal outdoor ethic. As previously stated, education rather than legislation is believed to be the key to responsible engagement with outdoor spaces. So Roosevelt, quote from Roosevelt, recognized the societal values of protecting natural resources when he created the first 5 national parks across America. But he also argued that merely designating protected areas does not guarantee preservation, and really pushed hard to see proper visitor support for low impact practice. So while this philosophy is sound, much has changed since that time. You know, the population's grown. We know much more about biology and ecology and our own impacts. We've had huge advancements in gear, transport options, you know, monitoring of visitors and their impacts. Well, so what? So I'm here sharing this info today with a bunch of outdoor educators, activity providers, instructors, leaders, guides, tour operators, you know, outdoor attractions. And really, I ask, what do you do to engage your clients on the topic of the environment? What is the narrative that runs alongside your product? Do you see nature and the environment as something to be conquered? Is it something to be climbed, to stand on top of, to be beaten? Is it a classroom, a place of learning, engagement, or even healing? Or is it purely a product, an adrenaline rush, an escape, something to be packaged and sold like a McDonald's burger? So before considering how to utilize Leave No Trace in your own business, you have to understand what your own environmental ethics are. And those who can accept Leave No Trace for what it is, i.e. a set of guiding principles and teaching methods, perhaps a new language that's really accessible to everyone. You know, those people are really well placed to utilize Leave No Trace to their best advantage and add value to their existing products and experiences. You may even be able to use Leave No Trace skills to develop new products by unlocking, you know, new areas to operate through better landowner relationships, for example. So in conclusion, you know, we're all aware that today's consumers are becoming more environmentally conscious. They are looking for products and businesses that have a clear ethical stance and can demonstrate genuine and sincere actions for the benefit of the people, the planet and its people. So embracing Leave No Trace offers an avenue for demonstrating that, and whether that's through social media posts, blog posts, or a dedicated page on the website. You know, even displaying the Leave No Trace logo on a homepage, which, you know, I might add would be particularly recognizable to potential clients from the US and Canada. You know, some people may even choose to diversify by delivering Leave No Trace awareness workshops as a standalone product. And this is something that we've certainly seen an increasing market for, with families, Scout and Guide associations, schools, colleges, universities, walking clubs. You know, the possibilities are actually somewhat endless. So I'd be more than happy to take any questions, but otherwise, those who are interested in learning more, you can contact me through our own website or through Stuart and Fergus. You can get my Hi address. That's not a problem whatsoever. And you can also sign up for email updates on, you know, training opportunities by joining the mailing list at the bottom of our website. I've put a reference list in there, but really, you know, a good starting place for further information is just to Google the different home nation websites. So that's Leave No Trace Ireland, Leave No Trace Canada, New Zealand, Australia. And there's a whole host of different resources and activity sessions and all different ways that you can apply Leave No Trace within your business on those websites. So I will